Let us talk about the most embarrassing, most jaw-dropping, most brutally honest marketing scandal to rock the tennis world in years. Because right now, somewhere out there, a Grand Slam champion, a player who has spent years clawing her way to the absolute pinnacle of women's tennis, is allegedly staring at a set of headlines that must feel like a punch directly to the stomach. On one side of this story, you have a Nike shoe tied to Eala, a teenage sensation from the Philippines that sold out completely in under 60 seconds. 60 seconds. On the other side, you have the signature tournament shoes of Aryna Sabalenka, the world number 2, a multi-Grand Slam champion, one of the most physically dominant athletes in the entire sport, sitting on clearance racks with 50% discount stickers slapped across the box, gathering dust in outlet malls from New York to Munich. That contrast is so staggering, so utterly outrageous, that even if you have never watched a single tennis match in your life, you understand exactly why this story has detonated across social media like a bomb. This is not just about shoes. This is about power, culture, identity, and the brutal economics of who really matters in modern sports marketing. And the answer, according to the sneaker market at least, is going to shock you. To fully understand the scale of what is happening here, we have to start at the beginning, because this story did not arrive from nowhere. It started with a notification. Nike announced a limited release connected to Eala. Now, for the casual Western tennis viewer, that announcement might not have set off alarm bells. Eala is a rising star, absolutely, a graduate of the Rafa Nadal Academy, and a player generating serious buzz on the tour. But she is not yet a household name in living rooms across America or Europe. She has not spent her Sunday afternoons hoisting Grand Slam trophies above her head on center court. She is not number 1 or number 2 in the world rankings. By any conventional metric, she should not be the kind of athlete who triggers a sneaker-feeding frenzy. And yet, when that shoe dropped online, something happened that defied every conventional metric in existence. It did not take an hour. It did not even take 10 minutes. Within 60 seconds of the release going live, the inventory was completely and totally wiped out. The checkout pages crashed under the weight of the traffic. Fans in the Philippines and across Southeast Asia descended on that digital storefront with a level of organized ferocity that is usually reserved for a Travis Scott-Jordan collaboration or a limited retro Nike Air Max drop. People were refreshing pages, running browser extensions, coordinating in group chats, all for a tennis shoe tied to a player that half the world had only started learning about recently. Within hours, pairs that had retailed at standard price were already appearing on StockX and eBay for 2 and 3 times what they originally cost. The resellers had arrived. The hype was real. And the message to the entire sports marketing world could not have been louder or clearer. Eala is not just a tennis player. She is a phenomenon. She is a movement. She is the kind of athlete that makes cash registers ring and servers crash simultaneously. Now, hold that image in your mind and place it right next to this one. At the exact same moment that Eala's shoes were being listed as collector's items on resale platforms, fans of Aryna Sabalenka were posting photographs from Nike factory outlet stores. And the photos were not pretty. Row after row of the Nike Zoom GP Turbo, the shoe that Sabalenka has worn through championship runs, through brutal 5-set battles, through the kind of grinding, explosive, take-no-prisoners tennis that has made her one of the most feared competitors on the planet, sitting there with bright red clearance tags. 50% off, come and get them, no rush, plenty of stock. The visual contrast between those two realities, Eala's shoes selling for triple retail on the secondary market versus Sabalenka's shoes begging for buyers at half price in an outlet store, is so stark, so brutal, and so perfectly symbolic that it almost feels like it was staged. It was not staged. It is just the market being the market. And the market right now is saying something that the WTA and Nike's executive team cannot afford to ignore. Sources close to the tour have been whispering that Sabalenka is furious. And look, let us be honest with each other for a moment, because if we are going to have this conversation properly, we have to acknowledge something up front. Aryna Sabalenka has every right in the world to be furious. Look at what this woman has accomplished. She has defended Grand Slam titles. She has dominated the WTA rankings with a consistency that very few players in the history of the sport have managed to maintain. She plays an electric, high-octane, refuse-to-quit brand of tennis that is genuinely thrilling to watch. She roars on the court. She fights for every point. She wears her emotions openly and unashamedly, and she wins. She wins constantly. She wins at the highest level. She wins when the pressure is at its most suffocating. By every traditional measure of athletic greatness, Aryna Sabalenka should be Nike's crown jewel in women's tennis. She should be the one selling out in 60 seconds. She should be the one with a signature lifestyle line, a custom logo, and a marketing campaign that makes the whole world stop scrolling. Instead, her shoes are on the clearance rack. And that disconnect demands a real, thorough, uncomfortable explanation. So let us give it one. Because this is not simply a story of Nike playing favorites or a personal vendetta against Sabalenka. What is actually happening here is a cold, calculated business decision rooted in the economics of supply, demand, and cultural marketing. And understanding it requires us to look honestly at how Nike treats its different athletes. For a top-ranked, consistently performing player like Sabalenka, Nike uses what you might call a mass market strategy. They know she is going to be on television for 30 or more weeks every single year. They know she is going to be visible across multiple platforms, across multiple tournaments, across multiple continents. So they lean into that visibility by manufacturing shoes at significant volume. They produce hundreds of thousands of pairs. They flood the big box retailers, the tennis specialty shops, the department stores. They make her shoes widely and easily available because she is the standard, the establishment, the anchor of their women's tennis line. And the problem with being the standard is that when you produce at that kind of volume, you inevitably create excess supply. An excess supply that does not move at full retail price ends up exactly where Sabalenka's shoes ended up, in the outlet, with a red sticker, next to last season's basketball sneakers. Eala, by contrast, represents an entirely different strategy. Nike almost certainly produced a very limited run of the Eala shoes. They understood that she has a concentrated, obsessively passionate fan base in the Philippines, a nation of over 100 million people who are famous across the entire sporting world for the extraordinary depth of their loyalty to their athletes. They created artificial scarcity. They made the supply deliberately small relative to the demand they knew was coming. And the result was exactly what they calculated it would be. A sellout that generated global headlines, a wave of social media posts, a flood of screenshots and order confirmations, and the kind of organic marketing that no paid advertising campaign can replicate. Sold out in 60 seconds is a story. Sold 50,000 pairs over 6 months is a spreadsheet. Sabalenka, right now, is the spreadsheet. Eala is the story. And in the attention economy that drives modern consumer culture, being the story is worth more than being the standard. But here is where the conversation gets truly interesting and truly uncomfortable. Because what we are really talking about when we talk about this disparity goes far deeper than inventory management and marketing strategy. We are talking about a fundamental shift in what drives consumer behavior in sports. For decades, the equation was simple: win trophies, sell shoes, lift the championship trophy on the biggest stage in the world, and the fans will line up to buy whatever you are wearing. Performance drives commerce. Achievement drives aspiration. It was a clean, logical, meritocratic system. And in many ways, it still works. But something has happened in the era of social media and digital identity that has cracked that equation open and exposed something more complicated underneath: connection cells, culture cells, representation cells, and in ways that pure athletic achievement, divorced from cultural resonance, sometimes simply cannot match. When a Filipino fan buys a pair of Eala's shoes, they are not just buying footwear. They are buying a piece of something much bigger and much more emotionally charged than a tennis shoe could ever be on its own. They are buying representation. They are buying the feeling of seeing someone who looks like them, who comes from where they come from, who carries their flag on the biggest stages in the world and refuses to shrink under the pressure. They are buying patriotism. They are buying pride. They are making an emotional investment in a story that feels personally connected to their own identity. That is an incredibly powerful purchasing motivator. It is the kind of motivator that makes servers crash and clearance racks irrelevant. And it is a motivator that Nike, whatever its strategic intentions, has correctly identified and deliberately tapped into with the Eala release. Aryna Sabalenka, for all her magnificence as an athlete, occupies a genuinely more complicated space in the cultural landscape right now. She carries the geopolitical weight of representing Belarus in a world where that carries significant and unavoidable associations. Beyond the politics, her brand identity as an athlete, powerful, aggressive, ferocious, dominant, is genuinely compelling, but it is a brand that has not yet been successfully translated into a lifestyle identity that resonates in the off-court consumer market. And that is not entirely her fault. Because if you look at what Nike has actually done to help her build that off-court identity, the answer is not much. There is no signature Sabalenka logo that fans immediately recognize. There is no custom lifestyle silhouette that makes her stand out in a crowd of tennis players. There is no streetwear collaboration that puts her in conversation with the culture beyond the sport. She is essentially wearing a team shoe, a generic performance model that a dozen other players might be wearing in slightly different colorways. And when you treat a champion like a generic athlete, the market, with brutal predictability, treats their merchandise like generic inventory. The comparison to how other brands have handled their tennis stars is absolutely damning for Nike here. Look at what New Balance has done with Coco Gauff. They built her a signature shoe with a distinct visual identity, a personality that feels specific to who Coco is as a person and as an athlete. It does not look like a shoe that could belong to anyone else. It looks like Coco's shoe. That ownership, that specificity, that sense of a genuine human being behind the product, that is what drives desire. That is what turns a tennis shoe into a cultural artifact. And that is precisely what Sabalenka has been denied by the very brand she has been loyally representing on courts around the world. This brings us to the question that Sabalenka's team must be asking themselves very seriously right now. How long can this go on? How long can one of the most dominant athletes on the planet watch her merchandise get discounted while a teenager's shoes crash servers? Because we have seen this exact movie play out before in tennis, and we know how it ends. We watched Roger Federer leave Nike after years of being their flagship tennis star and walk directly into a partnership with Uniqlo and On Running that gave him more ownership, more creative control, and a different kind of respect. We watched Iga Swiatek, the world #1, leave Nike and become the defining face of On Running. Think about that. The best female tennis player in the world looked at what Nike was offering and decided she could do better somewhere else. If that does not send a shiver through Nike's tennis marketing division, nothing will. And if the reports of Sabalenka's fury are accurate, you can bet that her management team is already running those exact calculations. They are looking at these headlines: Eala sells out, Sabalenka on sale, and they are not looking at them as embarrassing anecdotes. They are looking at them as leverage. They are sitting across from Nike executives, or they will be soon, and they are saying very directly, fix this or we leave. Imagine the blow to Nike's tennis portfolio if Sabalenka walked. Imagine if she signed with Adidas or Asics or one of the exciting disruptor brands that are fighting for position in the athletic footwear market right now. Imagine if she sat down with a brand that actually wanted to build something meaningful around her identity, gave her the signature treatment she deserves, and she went out and won 3 more Grand Slams in their gear. That is a nightmare scenario for Nike, and it is one they are potentially sleepwalking directly into. There is also a generational dimension to this story that cannot be overlooked, because it speaks to something much larger than tennis or sneakers. Eala is quintessentially Gen Z in the way she connects with her audience. Her social media engagement is enormous relative to her ranking. She speaks directly to a younger, mobile-first audience across Asia, a market that every major Western brand has been desperately trying to crack for years. In markets like the Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand, the demand for authentic cultural representation in global sports is massive and growing. Eala is not just popular in those markets. She is electric. She is transformational. She represents something that no amount of traditional advertising spending can manufacture: genuine, organic, deeply personal connection between a sports star and a community. Nike, whatever its failures in the Sabalenka situation, clearly understands this. The Eala limited drop was a very deliberate signal that they are paying attention to where the cultural gravity is shifting in global sports. and it is shifting east, rapidly and irrevocably. The social media reaction to all of this has been, predictably, a full-scale war. In one corner, the Eala Nation is absolutely reveling in the moment. They are posting order confirmation screenshots. They are tagging doubters. They are making the point, loudly and repeatedly, that passion beats ranking every single time. One comment that went viral said simply, "You can have the trophies. We have the culture." That is a powerful, pointed, perfectly crafted statement. It captures in 7 words exactly what this entire story is about. In the other corner, Sabalenka's defenders are furious, and they are not wrong to be. They are arguing that Nike is failing its own champion, that the marketing department has not done its job, that if they put half the creative energy and strategic thought behind Sabalenka's branding that they clearly put behind engineering a hyped limited release, her shoes would not be sitting in the discount aisle. They are right about that too. Both sides have a genuine case. And the fact that both cases can be made simultaneously is exactly what makes this situation so fascinating and so revealing. So, what actually needs to happen to fix this? Because it is fixable if Nike wants to fix it. The first thing they need to do is stop treating Aryna Sabalenka like a generic placeholder in their tennis lineup. She needs a true, distinct, unmistakable signature identity. Give her a logo that reflects who she is as a competitor. Create a shoe that is specifically engineered around her movement, her aggression, her style, and then market it that way. Make it look dangerous. Make it look like something you need to own because there is nothing else like it on the market. Second, they need to stop the volume flooding that inevitably leads to the clearance rack. Create scarcity for Sabalenka too. Release a limited edition Grand Slam version in 5,000 pairs and watch what happens when they sell out. Prove to her, to the market, and to themselves that the demand is there if you manage the supply correctly. Because the demand absolutely is there. Sabalenka has fans. She has passionate, devoted supporters who would love nothing more than to wear her shoe and feel connected to her story. They just need to be given a product worth lining up for. And for Sabalenka herself, the most important thing she can do is continue winning, because the trophy cabinet is forever even when the clearance rack is embarrassing. But she also needs to recognize that in the current era of sports, even the greatest athletes in the world are simultaneously the CEOs of their own personal brands. If her current partner is consistently undervaluing her stock, she has every right, and arguably a responsibility to herself, to explore whether someone else will value it correctly. The market for a Grand Slam champion who plays explosive, emotional tennis and has a massive global platform is not a small market. There are brands out there who would love nothing more than to build an empire around exactly what Sabalenka represents. The question is whether Nike will wake up before she starts taking those meetings seriously. This story of Eala's 60-second sellout versus Aryna Sabalenka's clearance rack is, at its core, a case study in the most important forces reshaping global sports. It shows us that the Asian market is no longer the future of sports marketing. It is the present. It shows us that emotional connection and cultural representation can create purchasing power that transcends rankings and resumes. And it shows us that even the greatest performance in the world, if it is not paired with a compelling, human, culturally resonant brand identity, can end up undervalued in ways that feel genuinely unjust. The tennis world is changing. The sneaker market is changing. And the players, the brands, and the organizations that understand this shift and adapt to it are going to thrive. The ones that do not are going to end up with red stickers on their legacy. We will be watching every move from here. We will be watching to see if Sabalenka shows up to the next major in Nike gear, or if we start noticing the subtle signs of a relationship coming apart at the seams. And we will be watching to see if Eala's next Nike drop breaks the 60-second record, because this story is nowhere near over. It is only just beginning. Now we want to hear from you, because your perspective on this is exactly what this community is built for. Is what happened here a catastrophic failure by Nike's marketing team, or is it simply the unavoidable reality of who captures the cultural imagination and who does not? Does Eala deserve every single bit of the hype she is generating? And does Aryna Sabalenka deserve dramatically better treatment from the brand she has been representing through every grueling tournament of her career? And here is the ultimate question we want you to settle in the comments below. If you were Aryna Sabalenka sitting in your training facility reading these headlines right now, would you stay with Nike and demand they fix it, or would you pick up the phone and call Adidas tomorrow morning? Drop your answer below. We read every single comment, and this conversation is one we genuinely want to have with you. If you found this breakdown valuable, and this is the kind of fearless, deep dive sports storytelling you have been looking for, hit that like button right now, and make sure you subscribe so you never miss what we cover next. Share this video, because the more people who are part of this conversation, the better it gets. We will see you in the next one. Do not go anywhere.